Not a matter of if, but when crisis will rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. In each case file, we explore a hot topic with people who bring us unique angles from the inside. Miss Shannan Paul is a comedian, media personality, professional speaker, and self-proclaimed geek. She's also the mom of a teenage son with autism. As he approaches high school graduation, she and he have different issues on their minds compared with some of their neurotypical peers when it comes to what his future holds and how much his mom will have to say in life decisions. Miss Shannan is here for the case file I call Autism Parents Long Game. Shannan, we first covered autism spectrum on the show during season 2 with case file number 102. There we focused on young children and introducing people to terms and an exploration of the neurodiverse mind, something with which you are very acquainted. Introduce us to the son you affectionately call Cyclone Kid.
Well, he's Cyclone Kid now. For a long time, he was the toddler tornado, but you know how kids do. They get bigger and they have to evolve you have to upscale them like a Pokemon. So I started calling him the Cyclone Kid. I don't know when I'm the superhero and when he's the sidekick and when he's the superhero and I'm the sidekick, but I like the sound of Miss Shannan and Cyclone Kid is what it sounds like. We're a good team.
I love that you say superhero.
Yes.
Because that's really a great, vivid image. And for folks who are wondering, Miss Shannan is your stage name.
Right.
So I will go back and forth between calling you Shannan and Miss Shannan.
And I will answer to both. Don't worry.
Excellent.
And it's just different. I'm very fortunate that I was able to, when I started his journey, when I got his diagnosis when he was 3.5, almost 4, that I was able to tap into some resources that now are easier to find for some of our parents. That's one of the things I'm very grateful about, the way that autism and the conversation about it has grown over the last decade, is there was a lot of me chasing what is this. They've narrowed down the alphabet soup of what those diagnoses look like. But I think people forget sometimes that what we're dealing with is a neurological development delay. So there's a lot of things that I've been working on with my son since he was 5, since he was 7, since he was 10, that are now starting to manifest. And that's kind of my game plan as we continue, throughout his young adult life and then his adult life, is planning for how can I continue to put him in the path of things that will help him thrive, ways that he can have his version of autonomy, but so I can also provide a safe space that has the resources that he needs to be able to do those things. And that's difficult because it's me planning for what's it going to look like if I need care when I'm 75, but he still is going to need care? And so it's just a whole different thought process. And you as an attorney know that, I'm almost to the point where I have to start having guardianship conversations with my attorney and discussing what that looks like, because my son, he's high enough supports that he's going to need some sort of care and somebody to work with him through things probably for the rest of his life.
And I just want to also clarify, as we discussed in case file number 102, and I want to just affirm here, at least on this show, I do not look at autism or neurodiversity as a disease. Mm-hmm. We define it as a difference of the brain.
Correct.
Even for neurotypicals like you and I are neurotypical, there's a spectrum of our brain.
Right.
So definitely the whole brain is a spectrum, whether you're somewhere on the neurodiverse part or somewhere on the neurotypical part.
Right.
So that's just something I feel very strongly about.
And it's something so that I can go as a parent, what are the tools and resources that I can give, like you would give to any child, to go, what makes you best able to navigate the world that you live in? And then what are the barriers that you have? And so that takes a lot of juggling on my side sometimes to go, well, what's the real end game? The end game is I want you to, as much as possible, to be able to pick your own outfits in the morning, find something that you like, and get yourself moving so we can get to school. Some days
and that's a
efficient.
Parental thought.
Exactly. Sometimes that's efficient, sometimes it's not. But for me, what I end up needing to do is maybe I help fold his clothes into his drawer differently. Maybe I organize them preemptively for him. I make sure that the seasonality is taken out of things. And then I go, okay, well, what can I do so that when you are doing the right thing, which is getting yourself dressed, there's no wrong answer. And so it's not, oh, well, why'd you pick that? Or that doesn't match, or, any of those things. Like, that's usually not my issue. But here's your options, and I make it easy on him. And so he can come out and go, yeah, good job, buddy. Yeah, you got that together. Let's get in the car. And that's what I've spent a lot of time doing, is finding those other opportunities instead of going, it's supposed to be this. When you fold a shirt, it's supposed to be folded this way. You put it in a drawer this particular way. Well, I noticed that he was putting his shirts on, backwards 90% of the time. So I could either sit there and give him a hard time about, well, you need to figure out what's backwards. Or if he's being consistent, if I had been being consistent and folding a shirt a certain way and that was the outcome I was continually getting, then it didn't hurt me to go, well, let me try folding the shirt the other way and see if the outcome I get is the shirt's on the right way. Because it is. He's putting on the shirt the same way. And so I just needed to change what I was doing. It didn't hurt me to start folding the shirt the other direction. It actually got us to the end goal more quickly. And that's what I encourage a lot of people and parents to do in these situations is as you're going through this journey, to stop going, here's the way it's supposed to be done. Because sometimes things are done a certain way because that's just the way they've always been done.
I really love how you explain that, Shannon. It's so beautiful. Something as simple as how he puts on a shirt, but we go back in time to you doing the laundry and putting the shirt in his drawer.
Right.
And what a smart and loving mom that you stopped saying this is right or this is wrong and actually thought about how could I make this process come up with the end result that most of the world would want.
Right.
And that would just make him fit in or just look really good at school.
Mm-hmm.
And you looked at your own behavior. I mean, that's really amazing. And it's such what we might think as a simple thing.
Right. And I wish that we didn't have to think about whether they fit in or how they get that response at school, but we do. For any kiddo, and we know how pervasive that bullying is, but bullying is especially pervasive in our neurodiverse community, and it's very difficult for kids. And so for me, what was also important was to go, I like it when he gets out of the car and the staff at his school, and they're great staff, don't get me wrong, but I want to make their life easier too. I try to be that parent. Because I know my kid can be a complex onion, so I try to make it easier. So it is great when he gets out of the car and the staff's like, hey, nice fit, man. That's great. You look cool. And for him to feel that energy, I think makes a big difference because he's already in this situation that can feel very unwieldy and people are continually putting demands on you and asking you to accomplish things. And I do feel for a lot of especially for my kid, he's going to school, he does a good job, but as people telling him he's doing a good job of stuff that he doesn't understand why it's important. I said that poorly. He doesn't prioritize the same things they do. So in his head, because this is manifest in our house, fine. If they keep telling me I'm good at it, why do I have to keep doing it? Because he's not worrying about what he's going to do 20 years from now and how this will pay it forward to future him if he's good at math or if he's good at these other things. He's like, well, then this is just getting in the way of the things that I really want to do today. And you keep telling me I'm good at it, then why are we repeating this whole process?
Interesting. It's illogical to him.
Exactly. And so for me, it's going, all right, when you get there, there's a good energy. When you get there, they're happy to see you. When you get there, they're going, all right, this is a place where you can feel it's part of your community. And that's what I look forward to him because my son, because of where he's at his high supports, I want him when he's in his 20s to be able to have, I call it a hobby job, to be able to be part of a day program where he has a community and he has his friends that he goes and hangs out with. Because I want him to be able to go and have people that he values and who value
have
him
a life,
and he has stuff to do. Right.
Have a purpose.
Exactly. And it might be a different definition of a purpose than what a lot of our family and our friends and our colleagues that are in that lovely neurotypical landscape are expecting for their kids. But I still have goals for him, and I know he still has things that, I'm working as best as I can to allow him to have autonomy in the way that is most appropriate for him. Sometimes it's little things where it's like, I spent a lot of money, Roshini, on windows in my house. Anybody who's put windows in their house, windows are expensive. But I needed to get new windows in our house. But one of the greatest things about that is because of the way the windows are set up, I can still allow him to decide when they're open or when they're closed, but they have little toggles on them so they can only open so much. So I don't have to worry about it being unsafe. But if he wants to have the window open, he should be able to decide to have the window open. But I can't expect him to go, I have to remember to close it because now it's a safety concern. That's putting too much on him. But
maybe he'll learn that eventually.
Eventually, because it's a delay. But right now, him being able to decide when the windows are closed, when they're open, when the curtains are open, those things, that's a big deal for him to be able to make those choices.
It's really fascinating because the more I learn about the neurodiverse mind, the more I am amazed at the brain itself. Because just like there is not one specific template for a neurotypical mind, that is the same exact sentiment for a neurodiverse mind. So we have 8 billion or so people on the planet. We actually have 8 billion different brains and minds.
And there may be pockets of similarities, but you can't always use those to go, here's the outcome that's always going to happen because this is what we do. And maybe your previous guest talked about this. One of my favorite analogies when you're talking about neurodiversity and the way brains work is, remember those old commercials that said, I'm a Mac and I'm a PC?
Yes.
That's how I look at it a lot. It's not that he's not processing. He's just processing differently than I would process. So sometimes I literally just have to take a step back and go, why are you beating your head against this particular processing wall? Let's just figure out how else we can get there. Because he always has a plan. Just because of the way that he processes language, he can't explain it to me, and I wish he could. There are so many times where I'm like, I still might disagree with him, but I wish I could know why he's on something some days. Because that's just, I think lots of times with teenagers, you're just like, oh, today is the day that you just are a whole different human being, and I'm not sure that we like each other. That's just teenagers. So there's some days that it's being a teenager, and he's just being a teenage complicated jerk. And then there's other days I'm like, oh, this is the autism. And there's days where the two things overlap, and you can't figure out where those two things start. And so that's the biggest complication that I think I have in parenting him, is going, when is it appropriate for me to push on him a little bit, because I do want him to make some strives and put on some things. So I do have to push at him because he is a teenager. If he was left to his own devices, he would sit on his phone in his room
and no matter what kind of teenage mind, that's teenage thing.
That's the thing. He would just love to do that. Snack, sit in his room. But I'm like, nah, we got to do something else, buddy. Come on. And here's how we're going to do it.
So what is your advice to parents out there who have a child who is on the autism spectrum? Again, it is not a disease. It's a different brain. And there are a lot of amazing people, many who aren't famous, but some who are, who have been believed to be on the spectrum. One of those is Albert Einstein. Jerry Seinfeld a few years ago said he believes he's on the spectrum. So, I mean, these are amazing people doing amazing things. But when you are a parent and there is a child who has to go through a public school system or a private school system, interact with other kids of all stripes, what is your advice to the parents?
Stop comparing yourself to whatever this made-up sitcom or television variety of what a parent is supposed to be and what a kid is supposed to do. Because a lot of those ideals were manufactured and are less likely to be real in anybody's home, but especially in yours. Because you'll spend a lot of time in that land of, oh, I wish it was, instead of being able to go, but this is really cool where I'm at. And the other thing that I encourage people to do is to preserve your energy. Like, I'm very intentional with some of my relationships now and my other things because I already have to figure out how I'm going to be refueled. I think that we as parents put a lot of pressure on having our kids refuel us because, hey, we did a great job parenting you, so you're going to fill my bucket back up. And I don't know if I agree with that anyway, but it's certainly not something that I can have that expectation with my son. So I have to go, well, how can I preserve my energy so that I can parent him well, but also take care of myself? Because even if you want to look at it from a non-selfish way, I'm what he's got to make sure that he's safe. So if I fry myself and I allow myself to get too depleted, then I can't do that. And that's really difficult.
All moms and dads. I mean, any parent needs to think about self-care.
Right. And it's difficult. I mean, you continually feel guilty and just I had to there's days where I'm like, yeah, we're going to be a little late to school because I've decided that today I'm taking a full shower. I know that I should just rush through this. And if he's dressed enough, let's go. Today, I'm going to moisturize. I'm going to hydrate. I'm going to go back in the house and get my glasses. All these things that you go, I don't have the time. When it really is, you need to make the time for yourself. And I've had to practice that over years, Roshini. I say it now because I wish I had learned it sooner. And I've gotten better at it now. But I'm literally going, this behavior of not taking care of yourself, you are slowly murdering yourself if you keep this out. You're going to burn it out.
It's great advice. That is great advice. One of the things that someone who is neurodiverse said to me about 3 years ago that really has stuck, and I've shared this explanation with a lot of people because I think it does help people get a little better idea of what it is like to be neurodiverse. This person said to me, Roshini, you know how I always say it's a right-hander's world? For me, this person shared, waking up is like I'm waking up in a right-hander's world times 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
It was not made for me.
Right.
That was such a vivid depiction of what it was like for him to wake up in the world that I live in, and because I'm neurotypical, and I also happen to be a right-hander, but it's made for more people like I am neurotypical.
Right. So it's continually being assaulted by inputs and expectations and all of these things and going, oh, I'm not sure that works out for me. And then people saying, no, it has to. You figure it out. And so a lot of our friends on the neurodiverse side learn to mask. And so they spend a lot of energy going, what can they do to fit in, to still be able to achieve, to not have accommodations made for them and still figure out what they're going to do when they show up every day and try and do their best at a place. And so if we can take some of that burden off of them, be willing to make the accommodations, to understand that sometimes you need a little bit more time or a little space or to be able to go, there's a reason why they're fidgety in this situation.
Right, or just quiet.
Right.
They maybe need quiet. We've seen in the headlines of different stadiums having quiet spaces. So if you are on the spectrum or just want a quiet space, there's a space for you to go and not be continually bombarded by all the sounds and sights and lights of an arena or a stadium.
Well, even some of the training that we've done with our law enforcement was really helpful for our neurodiverse community, because a lot of the things that they were originally trained to see as triggers and things that were, hey, this means that they're anxious, this means that they might be doing something that's a criminal behavior. A lot of those traits are things that somebody on a neurodiverse spectrum are like, well, no, this is how I navigate the world. And maybe I don't make eye contact. Maybe I do this. But it doesn't mean that I'm a danger or I'm on drugs or I'm any of those things. But we were created all of these templates based upon your right-handers, based upon your neurotypical people. And so I'm glad that we're at least moving towards dismantling some of those templates that made it so that our neurodiverse friends and our family can't thrive because they're already set up to fail and to be uncomfortable and to be imposters in this world.
And I bring this up and want to cover this topic in smart ways on the Crisis Files, not by any way of making excuses or apologies, but really helping all of us understand each other better. That is part of the mission of the Crisis Files. Also, I come at it really as a talk show host. I mean, as a talk show host, whether on this show or my previous show that I had for 9 years on Sundays, where I would be covering current events and longtime things and all different kinds of guests on my show, I really developed the muscle for not having any kind of bad feeling if you disagree with me. I just look at someone who doesn't have the same opinion as I have, or the same brain, or the same car, or the same neighborhood, is an opportunity for me to learn. Not an assault on who I am and not an assault on my opinion. And that's something I'd really love for all of us in the United States and beyond to really be thinking about. We can learn from difference. That's how I've chosen to move ahead, especially as this topic of neurodiversity is gaining mass conversation status.
And I would also encourage people to say different doesn't mean difficult. Someone isn't necessarily being difficult because they need some sort of different accommodation. And I think we look at it that way sometimes. We immediately put it into, oh, they're being a problem. Oh, they're being a brat. Oh, they're being a diva. When sometimes it's like, no, in order to be my best, this accommodation that probably doesn't make your life any harder would benefit me.
Well, language is powerful. I think sometimes, too, we hear that term accommodation, and it has a negative slant. It means you need an assist. Versus, wow, they don't need this, or they don't want that, or it's just different. So I think even the language we're using to explain differences among and between neurodiverse and neurotypical people, which, again, I go back to what I said originally. Even on the neurotypical spectrum, no two people are the same.
Right.
There's no one size fits all.
And the language is constantly evolving. I just was talking to a friend who was still using high functioning or low functioning. And I said, hey, can you do me a favor? We try not to use that terminology if we don't need to anymore because it provides stigma. And I gave him the full explanation as to why we were now moving towards higher supports or lower supports and why that was a little more it made it easier for people to understand where they were and took some of that negative label off of people by saying, oh, they're low function.
And the label has a subtext.
Right.
Everything has a subtext.
Exactly.
What we do say where, the label has a subtext. So the extent that we can, and it's difficult, how can we make the language as unjudgmental, non-judgmental, and I don't know that I can say neutral, but how do we make the language as vivid but as non-judgmental as possible?
Right. And I was really happy that my friend was like, thank you for telling me that, because it wasn't that he was trying to put his foot in his mouth. He just wasn't familiar with it. You know, that happens all the time as we update language and initialisms and things like that. There's lots of times where somebody gets the memo that this is the thing that we're using now. But I remember when I started this journey, one of the previous autism-related symbols was a puzzle piece. And I was about to go, I don't have any tattoos, but I was like, I'm really proud of my son. I'm going to go get a tattoo that says this. And it was going to be this puzzle piece ribbon, which we've now sunset. That whole thing, because now the way that we speak about it, it's like, well, that kind of implies that they're missing something or that there's something, there's a problem. And so they've moved into a whole different image. I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't get that tattoo.
I'm glad you didn't.
I didn't get that tattoo because then I would have been like going out there trying to, can you take this tattoo off? Because I made a mistake, which is why I don't have any tattoos every time. But every time I thought I wanted to get one, by then I'm like, just buy a necklace or a bracelet. It's so much easier. I think it's good for people to go, I'm curious about this, so I'll keep having the conversations. And I try and dance that line of sharing about what the experience is with my son and I without putting all of his business out there. I think that that's reasonable. You know, I like being able to share some things and for people to understand the journey because you know how it is. You're a media personality too. People think everything we do is like Oprah. I don't have a team of Oprah. It's me and my kid.
There's no glam squad.
And no, exactly.
We're doing our own makeup.
My own thing. I'm driving my own car. I'm vacuuming my own house and hanging out and parenting my own child.
That is why, partly why, I asked you, how do you want to refer to your son today?
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, it's just asking questions.
Right.
So let's get back to Cyclone Kid, who may get a new name based on his age and stage in the future. What are your hopes for him, Miss Shannan?
I want him to be able to communicate to me what he most wants to do. So we all live in a world where you don't get to only do your preferred activity every single moment of the day. But I want to be able to go, here's a bucket of things that you mostly like. And how can we do that? And have him to be able to go, yeah, I'm going to get up. I'm going to get on my, my Metro Mobility bus or whatever it is, or mom's going to drop me off at this place that I get to hang out with people and I get to do stuff. And I don't have a definition on what that stuff is yet. I'm going to leave that open to him, and we're going to see what things he ends up liking. But I do want him to be able to do that and have his routine that within certain parameters that we all need as human beings on this planet, within certain parameters that he gets to decide what his day looks like. And he can go through it and he can navigate it. And then I can go, okay, you did a good job at doing your schedule today. I appreciate you. And that's what we're looking for right now. And then between that, it's tickles and pokes and bratwurst.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing this part of your world.
Thank you.
It is a big part. Mm-hmm. It really informs everything
that I do.
Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. We appreciate the education, the enlightenment, the ability to give us some tools so we're less judgmental when we go out into the world. And that is so important. Follow Shannan on Instagram at Miss Shannan or Miss Shannan Paul on Instagram.
So at Miss Shannan, Shannan with an A. Yes.
Exactly. At Miss Shannan on Instagram, as well as MissShannan.com is her website. Today's case file is powered by Goff Public. Reputation issues can arise quickly and unexpectedly. Prepare and plan before a crisis strikes with Goff Public, an award-winning public relations and public affairs agency. Your best defense is a crisis-ready culture that helps you spot potential issues, act swiftly, and reflects your brand's values while building trust with your audiences. Learn more at golfpublic.com. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. Rate, review, and subscribe to The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Go to thecrisisfiles.com library to check out all 3 seasons of the show. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.